robotic tripods could be vaporizing New Jersey. Democrats would point out how the death lasers were disproportionately affecting low-income communities and people of color, and AOC would tweet, "Stop demonizing the Martian X community." I think this word equity has come into the language in the last few years, and before that we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality. Like it's the same word, and it's not the same word in the same concept. So how would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is.
Bill Maher didn't waste a second throwing cold water on the Sanders AOC fantasy ticket. Sure, Bernie and AOC are drawing big crowds, and recent polls even place AOC just behind Kamala Harris in the race for the DNC presidential nomination. To be clear, AOC hasn't officially declared any intention to run, but that didn't stop Maher. The comedian, known for his political predictions, including Biden's potential exit from the race, went full scorched earth mode, torching the Sanders AOC dream before it even had a chance to take off. In his eyes, it's not just a long shot, it's a losing bet. And here's why.
What do you think of the fact that the people who are getting the big crowds right now are AOC and Bernie Sanders? They're going around the country. Thank you, there's that same guy. I call him the always wrong guy. Okay, but I feel like, big crowds, again, the shiny object that the Democrats chase. It's not about the big crowds that come out to you when you're talking in a festival or wherever they are. I think it's because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on Election Day. And I just don't see that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker, I know you've worked with him. I like Cory a lot from my home state of New Jersey. Made a speech for 25 hours. Again, just whacking each other off. This is just not what's going to get the job done.
Many Democrats have been dreaming of a Bernie Sanders AOC ticket for the 2028 presidential race, but Bill Maher isn't buying the hype. The outspoken comedian argues that a Sanders-AOC pairing wouldn't outperform the Harris-Walz ticket, and he backed up his take with some hard-hitting facts in a fiery monologue. We've got all the receipts. So, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, let's dive in.
At an AOC Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho last month, someone threw a Palestinian flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young, loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is.
Has Don Lemon actually been paying attention to the Trump campaign? Because if he had, he wouldn't even joke about AOC and Trump appearing on the same ticket. That idea is beyond absurd. Politically, ideologically, and philosophically, AOC and Trump are as far apart as the North Pole is from the South Pole. One champions socialism, open borders, and identity politics. The other runs on America First economic nationalism and unapologetic patriotism. AOC is the poster child for progressive wokeness, marching in protests, canceling pipelines, and preaching climate alarmism. Trump, on the other hand, is grounded in results, not rhetoric. He's focused on jobs, borders, and getting things done. Pairing these two is not just unrealistic. It's political science fiction. If Don Lemon believes that's a serious possibility, maybe he's watching a different election than the rest of us. But Maher, his eyes are on the ball.
Of Nancy Pelosi, I think she's a very smart woman, but I think that era of the Nancy Pelosi type in the Democratic Party is over. I think that this is the era of whether, and I didn't like her policies at first, and I'm not necessarily in love with her policies, but people love AOC. People love Jasmine Crockett. People love Eric Swalwell and the like. And I think that the Democratic Party should put the people out there who the people want. They should put the politicians out there who the people want, who they're asking for, who are meeting the moment with the same energy that
they're not asking for AOC.
Yes, they are.
The people you party with are.
No. The people I party with don't like AOC.
Oh, please.
No, they don't at all.
Well, most people don't. But she's AOC, very far left.
Listening to Don Lemon sometimes gives me a headache. How can you openly criticize AOC's policies, yet in the same breath argue that she deserves to lead because that's who the people want? What kind of warped, contradictory logic is that? He even goes on to say that the people he socializes with don't like AOC. So, which people exactly are clamoring for her leadership? Oh, right. Don's trying to play both sides, pandering to the progressive crowd while secretly distancing himself. He wants to stay relevant, not controversial. Unlike Bill Maher, who doesn't care about applause or backlash, Maher says what he thinks. Crowd approval be damned. And that's why he hits harder and cuts deeper.
Because people will vote for AOC and Donald Trump on the same ticket. Because they're authentic. No, because they're authentic.
I don't think that, Don.
I think you're wrong about that.
What people like about people like Trump and Fetterman is because it's irrelevant to her life.
But you don't know her life.
I know that being a gorgeous woman who I wouldn't even know was Hispanic in a city that has 1 million Hispanics and does not treat them badly.
But that doesn't mean she doesn't struggle. That doesn't mean that she was set down.
It implies it.
But that doesn't mean that she was set down in a Hispanic ghetto in the Bronx and had to deal with that growing up, and that she's come from a working class family.
It implies that it implies that in some way she's behind the 8 ball.
That's one of the main reasons Maher says he won't get behind a Sanders AOC ticket. In his view, they're just too woke and too hypocritical. He slammed both for staying silent when far-left activists replaced an American flag with a Palestinian one at a protest. According to Maher, that moment should have prompted immediate condemnation from Sanders or AOC. Instead, their silence felt like approval of what he called an obscene and unpatriotic gesture. Maher has zero tolerance for what he sees as performative progressivism and America bashing. In his eyes, anyone who cheers for terrorists over their own country has no business in the Oval Office. So, he torched the Sanders AOC dream with brutal precision. And in an interview, Don Lemon Maher threw more light on why he doesn't support the Sanders AOC tag team.
I don't know if she's behind the 8 ball, but I don't think she's as privileged as many people who are in Congress right now.
Is that privileged or not? She was a bartender.
Yeah.
You know, so I was a delivery boy.
But I'm saying sometimes, Bill, you don't agree with Donald Trump's policies.
No.
But that's what the people want.
Some of them.
Whether you like her or not, I don't like what she did with Amazon in New York. But I think AOC she's a Democratic icon.
Well, she's the wrong. If you think that's the direction the country, the Democratic.
I'm not saying the policies that she espouses that's the direction, but I'm saying that you have to give the people who are out front speaking for the party, not the people who are.
If you think
she's evolving.
I know it's tough to follow Bill Maher's argument with Don Lemon constantly jumping and trying to shove AOC down his throat, but if you cut through the noise, here's the point. Maher's trying to make AOC seem like she wasn't nearly as underprivileged as she claims. She grew up in Yorktown Heights, a relatively affluent suburb, not some marginalized, oppressed neighborhood. Contrary to the narrative, she wasn't ostracized for being Latina, nor was she raised in dire conditions. So Maher asks a fair question. If someone is willing to stretch the truth about their own upbringing to gain political leverage, what else might they fabricate when handed the reins of an entire nation? It's not just about her past. It's about what that kind of dishonesty could mean for the future of American leadership.
You can get AOC there toward the middle, but, again, for the people that come up to me, Bill, what are we going to do? Well, you can't do much because you lost all the levers of power. What you can do, the thing that you can do, is get on your side to not look crazier than him. That's all you can do. Now go back to your $800 4-plate dinner while you're worrying about how the world is going to end.
What did you say? You don't want to look as crazy as he does?
That's the only thing liberals can do. Just don't do shit that makes people go, oh, Trump, he's just crazy, but at least he doesn't.
So I honestly don't believe AOC would ever shift her policies to be more moderate or grounded, because that's simply not who she is. Her political identity is built on progressive, often radical, ideals, and dialing that back would mean downing the very platform that launched her into the spotlight. More importantly, it's not just about AOC, it's about the broader direction the Democratic Party is heading. After listening to the rhetoric coming from the party's top brass, it's clear they fully embrace the woke agenda. From climate extremism to open border policies and identity politics, this is the new mainstream for Democrats. AOC isn't an outlier anymore. She's the poster child of where the party is going. Changing course would alienate her base and contradict everything she stands for. Simply put, she can't change and she won't.
Giant robotic tripods could be vaporizing New Jersey. Democrats would point out how the death lasers were disproportionately affecting low-income communities and people of color, and AOC would tweet, "Stop demonizing the Martian X community."
Like Bill Maher, I genuinely believe the DNC would be better off steering clear of a Sanders AOC ticket. Bernie Sanders, despite his passionate base, simply doesn't hold broad appeal with the majority of Americans. His relentless crusade against the so-called oligarchy often comes across as disingenuous, even hypocritical. Many people point out that while Sanders rails against billionaires and corporate elites, he's built a career within the very system he criticizes. He owns multiple properties, lives quite comfortably, and has been entrenched in Washington politics for decades. That kind of contradiction doesn't sit well with middle America. Combine that with AOC's divisive progressive stances, and you have a ticket that might energize the far left but alienates moderates and independents. In today's political climate, that's a losing strategy.
I think this word equity has come into the language in the last few years, and before that we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality. I think it's the same word, and it's not the same word in the same concept. So how would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is. Come me to think of it, equality is equality of opportunity. All right? We live in a society, we want all people to have whatever color your skin is.
Equity, I think, is more guarantee of outcome, is it not?
I think so. I think that's
okay. So which side do you come down on?
Equality.
And this is exactly what frustrates so many people about the woke left. They throw around buzzwords and ideological jargon without truly understanding or being able to define them. Take Bernie Sanders, for example. Let's not forget he's a self-proclaimed democratic socialist with views that often veer into full-blown communism. He's used the term equity time and time again in speeches and interviews, making it a central pillar of his progressive agenda. But when pressed in a live interview to define what equity actually means, he froze. No clear answer, no solid definition. Just vague rhetoric. It was downright embarrassing. Bill Maher had to step in and practically bail him out of that awkward moment. If you're championing an idea that you can't even explain, why should anyone trust you to implement it at the national level? That's the problem. Empty slogans, no substance. When Bernie Sanders is confronted with hard facts, he tends to crumble under the pressure. In a recent exchange, Bill Maher laid out data from actual credible polls. Nothing sensational, just the numbers. And what did Bernie do? He started to deflect, evade, and shift the conversation, but Maher wasn't having it. He pressed on, exposing just how thin Sanders' talking points really are when held up against reality. Even more telling is the fact that the Democratic Party itself doesn't seem to fully embrace Sanders' brand of socialism anymore. Case in point, a large majority of Democrats in Congress voted in favor of increasing military spending. Something Sanders has loudly opposed for years. If even his own party is willing to break ranks on such a core issue, it shows just how out of step he is not only with the nation, but with the Democratic establishment itself.
You were advocating at the Supreme Court, I think it was last week, right? Because, or maybe it was this week, that the Supreme Court is looking at Biden's giveaway to people who own debt.
Giveaway is your term, not my term.
Well, they have college debt, okay, and we're going to give them money.
We're going to forgive debt.
Well, we're arguing about the same thing, but there was no argument. We're giving the money away.
Honestly, if the Democratic National Committee ends up endorsing an AOC Sanders ticket for 2028, it could spell yet another political disaster for the party. It would be a repeat of the Harris-Walz ticket, an uninspiring combination that failed to energize the broader electorate and did little to unify the party's fractured base. While AOC and Sanders may excite the far-left progressives on Twitter and college campuses, they simply don't resonate with middle America independents or traditional Democrats who are looking for stability, pragmatism, and leadership, not ideological experiments. The pairing would alienate moderate, business-minded voters and working-class Democrats who are already disillusioned with the party's increasingly radical positions. Worse yet, it would give Republicans an easy target to run against. Two candidates who have openly championed policies viewed as extreme by the mainstream. If the DNC wants to remain competitive in 2028, doubling down on the far-left playbook is a sure way to lose. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed our spicy narration, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more exciting videos like this. Remember to share with your friends so we take down the woke empire together. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next.